This review isn't about any ordinary game. Out of all the spin-offs Street Fighter II has, today we're talking about the Street Fighter II pinball machine, created by Gottlieb and presented by Capcom in '93. At one point, if a movie, show, or game was popular enough, it would see a pinball adaptation. Pinball machines dominated an era and still have a strong cult following today. While most pinball machines seem to be all about keeping your ball alive the longest in order to achieve a high score, it's a difficult platform to get a real story or goal across. I think it's fair to say that, while many machines are interesting, fun, and carry lots of nostalgia, not every adaptation did its source material justice. Street Fighter II, on the other hand, made that leap with grace. With only 5,000 some units ever produced, consider yourself lucky if you've ever come across this machine. It has sick cabinet and board art that gets you excited to reach for your money. For each ball, you start off with a minigame with Chun-Li for points. You have to launch the ball at the right time in order to hit the bullseye. The better your timing, the more points you get if you can hit her bracelet target. As the ball comes into play and you bounce it around the board, watching bonus screens pop up and lights flashing while you're trying to survive, you may think you're in for an average game of pinball, just trying to stay alive to get some points. The novelty is there, it's Street Fighter II, so maybe you'll play it once or twice, until you realize this pinball machine is different than the rest. Until you realize that a goal has slapped you in the face and becomes crystal clear. It's up to you to defeat all 12 Street Fighters of the original cast. As you scan the board, you will notice how this is done. Each of the fighters has their name by different holes or tracks. You need to hit the ball there in order to defeat them. Some shots are easier than others. Characters like E Honda and M Bison are front and center, pretty easy to defeat, while characters like Guile, Zangief, and Chun-Li are more difficult because they require power and precision due to the ramps and obstacles in the way. It's not just as simple as putting the ball in the different spots, you also have to wait for these fighters' names to become lit before you can defeat them. More fighters become available as you knock out the others, but some are more specific than that. For example, Sagat must be defeated before you can reach Zangief, since defeating Sagat results in a ramp dropping down, making Zangief's shot accessible. Same concept with defeating Vega before you can defeat Chun-Li, and before Vega you must defeat M Bison. There are other examples of this, like Ryu must be defeated before Ken, and M Bison before Balrog, since they share the same spot. There's a ton of satisfaction that comes with learning the board, making its difficult shots, and seeing each character's defeated animation. It's so exciting that every character you defeat will send an invigorating pulse down your sack, making you beg for more.
There we go, there we go, there we go.
I've been squaring off against the same machine for my entire life, up in Breezy Point, Minnesota. It's a resort we've been visiting annually for almost 20 years. The thought of ever beating a game like this just never seemed possible, but I always came back to give it another try.
That's fucking retarded. I only did this fucking 3 times in a row. Damn.
The most rewarding part was getting one closer to your goal, defeating a fighter that you haven't seen before and seeing their unique animation. 2 years ago, I did manage to defeat the 12 fighters. Then I entered what is called Champions Mode. It's when the game goes apeshit, gets super loud, all of the lights are strobing, and you have to get all the fighter spots again, but with a single ball. It's hard to describe how it feels when you work so hard towards a goal that you can imagine will be so satisfying to accomplish, just to realize you haven't even come close, and it'll probably never happen. But this year, I went up with a different amount of determination. I was ready to spend whatever and do whatever I could to win.
Oh, the tilt warning.
On the very last night, it happened. I became the only master in this machine's 23 years of existence. And I will go to that later, but first I will do a quick overview of how you defeat the different fighters, since in my opinion that is the most interesting part. The first 3 fighters are E Honda and M Bison to your left and right, along with Sagat, who's further up the board underneath Zangief's ramp. After you defeat one of them, Ryu becomes available. He's tough to reach in the top right. You need a well-timed shot from your top left flipper. Vega becomes lit after the first defeat as well, underneath Chun-Li's ramp. After defeating M. Bison and a couple of others, Balrog lights up in the same spot as M. Bison. After you defeat around 5 to 6 fighters, characters like Zangief, Blanka, and Guile become available. For Zangief, you need to hit it up the steep ramp for his power driver shot. Blanka is top left, which isn't too bad of a shot, or when you launch your next ball, it actually rolls in his area and defeats him too. Guile is an incredibly hard shot at the back of the board that requires perfection. You need to hit this tiny spot with enough power to roll up to the top track in order to defeat him. After you defeat these guys, fighters like Dalsim, Chun-Li, and Ken show up. Dalsim isn't a tough shot. He's at a spot you hit regularly for 2 million points at the back of the board. Ken is the same shot as Ryu, but he's extra frustrating because of how late he becomes available. Getting the ball up to your top left flipper can be so hard to do before hitting it in their wheel, especially if it's your last life. Unfortunately, he's the only fighter I don't have footage of defeating, but his animation is him doing a kick like this. Chun-Li is a crazy shot that takes up the entire board. You reach her with the ramp to the right. Not only do you need really good aim and serious power to reach her, but you need perfect timing on your side too. You have to pass by her spinning kick flipper, so 4 out of 5 times she'll just slap your ball back down the ramp. Once you defeat all of the fighters, this is where you're introduced to Champions Mode, as mentioned earlier. You just have one try to hit all the shots you just did. Each shot you hit, the flashing lights will turn off at that hole so you know to move on to the next. You get a loud alarm sound and 5 million points for each fighter you defeat in this mode. Defeating every fighter is almost impossible, and it's gotta be one of the hardest games that I've ever beat. If you can manage to do it, you get a 500 million point bonus to catapult your name into the top score ranks.
Oh, Kristen, tell me you have it.
There's a page for high scores and a separate page reserved for any true master that has defeated this mode. And I'm proud to say that, for now, on this machine, I stand alone. Overall, it's a really fun game. Like most pinball games, it's going to frustrate you, especially if you're trying to beat it. I can't emphasize enough how much I do love that this pinball game actually has a purpose, and it's not just a mindless race to a high score. It does its source material justice. You not only defeat the 12 fighters, but you're also treated to a car smash bonus just like the video game and other neat stuff. If you ever want to play this machine and not sure where to go, I recommend checking out Breezy Point Resort in Minnesota. It's a fun place to vacation if you're into spending some time outside, swimming, fishing, boating, golfing, hot tubbing, pool, air hockey, ping pong, and playing their decent selection of arcade games. This is the only place I've ever seen this machine, which makes me want to ask, have any of you guys played this game before? If so, where was it? I would love to know if one exists in North Carolina. Anyway, I highly recommend that you try this game out if you ever have the chance. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next review.
Okay.